As the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce, it's Vala Afshar's job to not only understand the forces behind the digital business revolution, but to be a storyteller, using his platform to engage with people and to share his high-tech industry insight with the rest of the world. Now, prior to his current role, Vala was Chief Marketing Officer at Extreme Networks and CMO and Chief Customer Officer at Interisys Networks, where he was responsible for global marketing and customer service and support. Well, Vala, welcome. We're delighted to have you with us.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, let's start. I'd like to talk about the nature of work and the nature of workforces as well, and how they've been affected by the pandemic and by technology. From your outlook at this moment, with all that the world has experienced in the last 22 months, what does the future of work itself look like?
What we've experienced over the last 22 months, and it was like a light switch. We immediately went to a decentralized world. We all received memos that we can no longer come to the office or the building, most of us. In Canada, about 40% of the working population, starting March of 2020. And it was a digital-only period. You could only engage with stakeholders, customers, partners, communities, business partners through digital channels. And what you saw was a boundless ecosystem. You were no longer inside the walls of your headquarters or your facility. So you saw boundaries extend to our homes. So digital first, decentralized, and without boundaries. That was a 10-year acceleration, both in terms of cultural and digital transformation. In March of 2020, only 9% of the Canadian workforce worked from home. Fast forward to just April, almost 30 days in 2020, and that number was 60%.
Wow. So
incredible acceleration of businesses being comfortable, again, forced to, with social distancing and the pandemic, to create an environment where the boundaries extended to this boundless ecosystem. By the way, 40% in Canada. In the US, only 34% of the population can work remotely. And it varies by industry to a degree. If you're working in insurance or finance or scientific areas, it could be up to 85% of the population working from home. So that was cultural transformation. In terms of digital transformation, Canada saw, for example, a doubling factor in terms of use of e-commerce, digital commerce. My company looks at 500 billion digital commerce transactions during a 90-day period. We studied 51 countries. These are 20 some odd billion interactions that happened in a 90-day window. Of the 51 countries we looked at, the number one country in terms of growth for e-commerce in the world was Canada. 111% year-over-year growth. And this is, again, over a 10-year period acceleration in just the first couple of months in 2020. Now, that doesn't surprise me, because OECD ranks Canada as the number one most educated country in the world. You have, I believe, 56% of the population have college university degrees. You are among the most connected country in the world. 94% of Canadians have access to internet. In the US, it's only 90. And as far as the most educated country, US ranks 6th, while Canada is number 1. And when you look at the last 20 years of business, successful private businesses that have reached greater than $1 billion in revenues, what we call unicorn companies, as far as non-US founders of these unicorn companies in the US, Canada ranks number 3, only behind Israel and India in terms of Canadian founders building these incredible, successful companies in the world. So the most educated, the most connected. I'm not surprised that you're number 1 in terms of adoption of e-commerce during this period. So the future of work will continue to be decentralized more and more. We'll continue to have a hybrid model. Most of the business leaders that I have the privilege of working with, they're more interested in choreography versus orchestration. And they're interested in enabling folks that can deliver asynchronous contribution and work to do that while they focus their management energy on perhaps some synchronous work. So I think that this decentralization, digital first, and boundless economy means that businesses will have to adopt this asynchronous versus synchronous. I think of the Toronto Raptors. That's synchronous work. Five men on the court, each depending on each other to get rebounds and shots and assists. When I think of the Blue Jays and a pitcher on the mound, that's a solo performance. Of course, the folks behind him are asynchronous, so it's a combination of asynchronous and synchronous work. But as professionals deal like professional athletes, accountability, winning, team success, this notion of synchronous versus asynchronous, I think it'll be part of the future. And it's the future that's going to be with us. These are permanent behaviors. The pandemic has created permanent behaviors that I believe to be permanent in terms of what, this hyper-connected knowledge sharing economies will be about.
Well, and that was precisely where the question was taking me. And that is, is this a phenomenon that's permanent? Or is it something that once we take away all of the constraints, we go back to life the way that it was before and to work as we knew it before?
Most of the research that we have, and this is third-party research, as well as our own, point to the fact that vast majority of workers prefer a hybrid model moving forward. And we also believe that, companies that are going to succeed and win in this new economy, decentralized, digital first, people first economy, will adopt a hybrid model. And I say people first because when you have a decentralized construct, you will inevitably have a war on talent. When you can work from anywhere and deliver value to your stakeholders everywhere, you're no longer limited to geographical presence to office headquarters. We'll see talent being attracted, recruited, and retained from all around the globe. So, companies that are unable to create that flexible model in terms of recruitment and retention, understanding that the world is digital first and decentralized, will have a tough time keeping talent. We have research that indicate today 4 out of 10 Canadian workers are likely to leave their current employer in the next 12 months.
4 out of 10.
And in the next 12, 4 out of 10 in the next 12 months. In fact, we have over in the US, we have over 11 million job openings, which is record high. It's called today the Great Resignation. I like to think of it as a great realignment. People are realigning their work and life, understanding and going through the hardship of the last 22 months. So they're more deliberate about their choices. So this is why it is a digital first, people first market. And so employers really need to think about how they develop their recruitment and retention strategy moving forward.
I'd like to pursue that. All of the employers that I've spoken with over the course of the last 2 years have said to me, there's no going back, that their company is not going to look the same in the future as it did in the past. And we saw with businesses, they were forced to retool virtually overnight, to move to distributed workforces, to develop new product lines, new ways of distribution, to look at new marketing plans and so on. All of this was dramatic. If you were advising employers at this point and saying, okay, if you're revisiting your business strategy and what your company is going to look like in the future, what would be the advice that you would give them in terms of their planning and how to get it right?
My first advice is to adopt the beginner's mindset. There are no experts of tomorrow. So you have to experiment, you have to always engage with your stakeholders, and you have to stay nimble and agile. I have a young child, so I understand the beginner's mindset because I'm reminded every day with the questions, why do we have to do this? And what does this mean? And the flexibility and that, free of prejudice and thirsty and hungry for new knowledge. The CEOs that I have the privilege of working with are driving a digital first strategy. In order to ensure success from anywhere, there's a critical element in terms of how you design your business and your technological investments. At my company, nearly 50 some odd thousand people were able to instantaneously work from home because we were designed for movement. If you think about a 4x100 relay, the first leg of the relay can be at elite level, sometimes a second slower than second, third, and fourth, because the runner is at a static position. Whereas in the second, third, and fourth, the runner is in motion before the baton is handed to you. In business, if you want to be flexible and agile, you have to design for movement and in order to achieve optimal speed. We were designed for movement because we're a cloud computing first company. And so cloud enabled us to have minimal technical debt and be able to, run our business on devices like our phones and tablets and laptops. In fact, 2021 IDC Salesforce economy study found that cloud-related technologies will make up about 37% of IT spend moving forward. So companies are looking at their structure and understanding optimal design for speed. The other thing is that when you look at some of these new startups, and Canada is incredible in terms of the startup economy, most of these founders no longer look at physical location as their headquarters. Your headquarters is in the cloud. So they're building digital headquarters. Legacy companies are also looking to create digital twins of their physical infrastructure and create a digital headquarter, because that's also essential in terms of how you engage with your stakeholders. Be flexible, be empathetic, be accessible, take advantage of strategic partnerships, and position yourself for what will be continuous change. That's the only constant that I can assure you of, is that we will continue to face challenges and opportunities. And those of us who are able to pivot with minimal friction will be able to compete in this economy.
You point out that when we look at adapting to all of this, that legacy companies are starting from a very different position from new companies being created today. So it was interesting when you were mentioning the growth of the digital economy in Canada. Salesforce, pardon me, not Salesforce, but Shopify leapt to be the #1 company in Canada in terms of size, a company that didn't exist just a few years ago, and that's based on these digital technologies. How else would you stratify this? What about large business as opposed to small business? Is there an inherent advantage to one or the other in terms of making this adaptation?
Generally, my understanding is the target for Canada's digital economy is to employ an additional 2.26 million digital skilled workers by 2025. So that covers all businesses of all sizes across all sectors. What's common for all of these companies is digital literacy, making sure that they're investing in their employees and customers and business partners and communities, their stakeholders, so that you can keep up with this unprecedented velocity. And I say velocity because it's not just speed, but also direction of technology. As you mentioned, an incredibly successful e-commerce company born and with fantastic success in such a short period of time. We just released a digital skills index, a global survey of over 20,000 professionals. And 3 out of the 4 professionals in the survey felt they're not equipped with the right skills to meet the demands of business today in terms of digital proficiency. In Canada, that number was north of 80%, so 4 out of 5 workers. So again, you have some of the most prestigious universities in the world, obviously the most educated, as I mentioned, and most connected. So there's an opportunity for Canada to be a superpower in this decentralized, digital first, people first, boundless economy. But what businesses need to do is they need to be deliberate in terms of investing in their employees. My company, we decided several years ago to make education free and accessible to anyone. As long as you had internet access, you could access our education program, which we call Trailhead. We have close to 4 million, I think about 3.7 million learners on our platform. And we partner with over 700 colleges and universities to provide this curriculum. What does that mean for us? Well, our customers are successful learning, our employees are successful. IDC projects that the Salesforce economy in Canada will create 72,000 new jobs and $36.8 billion to GDP of Canada by 2026. I believe the fact that education is made available to our stakeholders is the principal driver for creating new jobs and growing economy, because this digital divide that exists continues to widen. And unfortunately, what that means is small, medium, and large businesses can and will struggle. Since 2020, in the last 22 years, 61% of Fortune 500 companies have disappeared. Mergers, acquisitions, bankruptcies, for a number of reasons. So even the largest companies with the most revenue are not immune to disruption, including my own company. That's why we invest in education. That's why we're the most active corporate capital venture company in the world. We invest in, I believe the Cadence is a new startup on a weekly basis, including startups in Canada. So I think employers need to be deliberate in terms of education, and also generous in terms of their immigration policy. I have to say that because I'm an immigrant refugee. So, when I read that Canada is looking to welcome over 400,000 new immigrants this year into Canada, and in the last 20 years, as I mentioned, Canada is third in the world in terms of non-US born founders who have created unicorns, private companies with over $1 billion in revenue. Your investment in the immigrant community can absolutely help increase the goodness of society in your communities. And Canada is a world leader in terms of that. And that's why Salesforce is proud to invest in Canada.
Fascinating. Vala, thank you so much for sharing these fascinating insights with us. This is very valuable information for our viewers to be able to get. We're very grateful to you for being with us today.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.